All right. Here's Rick. I was slightly late getting started. Rick was extremely late, even coming.
I had a joint excuse. Adam, that is a badass hoodie you have there,
you
sir.
like my Red Wings autism hoodie? It's got my name and number on the back. I love this hoodie. The only problem is it's white, and I hate white because it doesn't stay white long.
Obviously, Mr. Hashbash is here. Anton, Harb, Rick, late Rick.
Not late, Rick. No. Properly timed, Rick. Properly timed, Rick.
And it's also in time to do the honors of mentioning our great sponsors.
Put me to work then. Okay. Jazz Cabbage Café is sponsored by the Botanical Company of fucking course. Redemption Cannabis. Relief Solutions. The Detroit Nutrient Company. GrowGreenMI.com. Custom 420 promos featuring Culture Clothing. This Saturday is a Grow Green MI's Spring Expo, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who enjoy the Grow Green scene, that's pretty awesome. I just wanted to share that with everybody. Hello, Red Setter Farms.
Yeah, a lot of great information at the Grow Green. If you're into, obviously, growing, those distributors show up and have demonstrations and samples, and we'll discuss personally their products and how best to use them, and just get the kind of extra information that would be very helpful with your garden. And those have been really popular for a lot of years. So they are one of our great sponsors.
I have been meaning to say something to Anton Harb, too, by the way. Anton, we're trying to get you up to Vehicle City Social one of these days. They have free Cuban food on Sundays, just to let you know. I know that's your jam.
Food. So. Oh, man. I tell you what, man, you let me know. I'll be there. I can't wait to hang out.
We'll make an arrangement one of these days.
Heard nothing but good things.
Yeah. Fantastic.
What's new? It's new and exciting.
Everything's new. My haircut's new.
I love it. Very regal. Very regal.
Yeah, very, very conformist, short hair kind of guy. But you know what? I did this for a number of years. I used to be a big poofy hair afro guy, and then I was a semi-long hair guy. And then I spent 20 years managing retail in the state of Michigan, and this had to be the uniform. So I sort of got used to it.
I get it. Sometimes I still go with the military look, but not anymore. I say hell with it.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? I like it. It's okay. I complain and I bitch about it, and they make it too short in the back and all that stuff, but still it's comfortable to me. It's easy to manage, and I like the way I look with this. So it's okay.
Adam, you're looking swell as well.
I'm feeling swell.
Did you say he's looking swollen? Is that what you said?
No, it's swell.
Oh, he's looking swell.
Either one. Right. That's a nice joint there, sir. And I don't say that to other men very often, but wow.
No, this is a Marty McFly joint from Cannabis, sorry. And when you're too lazy to roll your own, you let someone else do it for you.
I have been gifted recently a couple times Old School Organics. I had one of these just the other day. First of all, I love having a cork on it. It's also nice and big with a wonderful hemp wrap on it, too. I smoked one because I couldn't wait, but I have a second one. I was gifted by Lighten Up Provisioning Center, and I am just ready to do it once we get together and have a party one day.
2 grams, I think, are in there. It was pretty good. I smoked one myself last week. It was excellent.
Really nice. Really nice. Speaking of what's really nice and giving credit to people, this Tropicana Poison that I got up at Vehicle City, I don't know if you can see how dark it is. It really is. That's all caregiver cannabis I've been putting through my lungs this last week or so. Just a super great mix. That's what I'm doing right now. It's got nice perps. It's got good flavor. I also did a show on Friday last week where I was a co-host of the Green Market Report, which was 2 hours of a special deep dive into athletes and cannabis. Darren McCarty was on. Darren McCarty mentioned a couple of the brands that he really liked in Michigan, and he mentioned Franklin Fields and Michigan Terp Farms. So it was nice, and that's national coverage. It's on Apple TV, it's on Roku TV. So to see him give some praise to some local boys that we like, it's always nice.
What did he say about us? He said that we were the two old guys on the Muppets up in the balcony or something like that.
He did. Darren McCarty has this thing where he says, don't tell me about the what, tell me about the who. I like to get involved in projects where I know who's going to be involved so I can trust whether or not it's going to turn out to be a monkey show. And he mentioned Rick and Jamie are my who's in Michigan and blah, blah, blah. He's like, in the cannabis community, they're like the two old guys in the Muppets that sit up in the balcony and just, have a sarcasm about everything going on below them. But everybody always respects them up there in the balcony. So
yeah,
it was nice.
Darren McCarty is one badass dude. I enjoy every time we get to see him. I think he's huge supporter of the veterans. I mean, not only the veterans, but just the cannabis community in general, and his perspective and just everything he says, you could tell it's genuine. There's no bullshit that comes out of the guy.
People should check out his book and listen to his story. He's pretty raw. He's pretty open, and if you doubt how genuine he is, you take a look at that and then make that determination.
He's a true winner. I mean, that's a guy who has just that spirit, who he is going to survive and he is going to progress, and always positive. Almost like I wish I had that positivity level. He's just a good dude.
I first met Darren back when he was still drinking back at the Royal Oak Music Theater in the green room for Snoop Dogg when we brought the Kush for Snoop Dogg back then. And he was a drunk.
He was a different person.
He was obnoxious, to be honest with you.
He was none of those things you said about him, Anton.
Nope. He was grabby of women. He was disrespectful. He actually said some things about me to the entire room because I was dressed nicely because I was conducting an interview. And shit, I didn't know that you don't dress nicely to conduct an interview with Snoop Dogg. It was, 2010, 2011. I didn't know that. And now you look at the guy, he's so busy with the comedy tour, with all the things that he does. He's also into the wrestling now. He said, come down to what was it? Harpo's. We're going to go down to Harpo's and have a wrestling match. He says, I'll put you courtside. I'll make sure you get splattered with blood. I was like, thanks, but that's probably an offer I'm not going to take advantage of. So
it's a testament of how good the plant can enhance people's lives. I mean, for me in general too, I was a different person back in the day, and cannabis you don't have to depend on those substances. Alcohol to me is no fun. And when you go to a party and everybody's drinking and you're not, it never works out. And I think that's just a testament of how cannabis can enhance not only your life, but culture.
I watch how people behave while they've been drinking, and I think to myself, how many events was I at where I behaved that way, where people looked at me and probably thought, wow, this guy's not got it together at all. I see some people in our industry, they run around like, freshmen at the first week of Pledge Week, at college, and they're trying really hard to impress everybody with how much they can guzzle and still walk straight. So to me, this brings up an important thing. Jamie and I talked about some of the stuff we wanted to discuss today on the show. The Royal Oak just denied an opportunity for Arts, Beats, and Eats to have a cannabis smoking tent at that particular facility. Arts, Beats, and Eats is 400,000 people. It's one of the largest events in the state of Michigan. So to have a big smoking tent there would have been a real huge step forward. But based on the article that was published by the Detroit News, what was said was the location proposed for this wasn't ideal, probably wasn't large enough to be able to handle what they expected to be, and that they weren't closed to the opportunity, but that they wanted to see how several other events in Michigan played out this summer that were going to have a cannabis component to it. And although they may not have mentioned them specifically, it's Dunesville and Hoxeyville and the Dunegrass festivals too, that I think they were talking about up north. So
Tom Beller, of course, Tom and Krista Beller of Real Leaf Solutions, great cultivators, sponsors of this show have had they were I think the first to get an event license, and they just weren't able to put one together. And right in the beginning, the first bits of insurance that were available for it were just not worth it, so they had to kind of pass for a little bit, but they were able to kind of pair that license and desire to put on a thing for a long time with Tom's connections in music. Of course, he's also a principal in Echoes of Pink Floyd. He's played a Canna Jam last year and will again this year in October, and just a great act, especially with the laser light show. And they do a great job of nailing those, giving tribute to those songs, and then putting out the big production with it and everything like that. It's a great draw. And if you sit there and comfortably smoke some pot, which I'm sure people would anyway, no matter what kind of a festival they might be. But
when I posted the link on Facebook today about not having any cannabis at Arts Beats and Eats, several people came up and said, "Oh, there'll be cannabis at Arts Beats and Eats. Don't you worry about it."
Yeah,
and,
it goes on anyway.
What there won't be is a big advertising sponsorship paid to Arts Beats and Eats by some cannabis company so that they can corral people into smoking in one area. That's what's not going to happen.
Pine Knob, right? Look what happened to Pine Knob.
Right.
Exactly.
Same concept.
They haven't quite done it yet, but Loom has got the space there that they sponsor. Colin and I smoked some pot there in a show last summer. Nobody seemed to really care. I mean, it wasn't official yet or anything, but they have their space and their branding there and everything all ready to go.
And they do have that branding, big posts all over the place.
I was at a Willie Nelson concert there, and I just sparked up. I was in the front row. I didn't give a shit, and everybody was smoking there. I just think, and nobody was messing with you. They're not busting balls. I mean, as long as you're being respectful, who's going to mess with you?
Yeah,
right on.
I think we're at that point where we're really. Cannabis is so ubiquitous in society, and the cannabis laws are so friendly to the consumer that it really, Can you imagine, Anton, if you had been hauled out of the front row of the Willie Nelson concert for smoking cannabis, right? Imagine what the other festival goers would have done to security while they hauled you out while you've got your joint in the air waving it. Yeah, it wouldn't have been very pretty for them, I don't think.
I'll tell you what, I was in Nashville last week for a veteran nonprofit event. And afterwards, we had gone down into downtown Nashville, and they have this big thing called Whiskey Jam, this bar called Losers. And there had to have been, 5,000 people there. And in a state that still isn't legal, everybody was smoking. It seemed like it was the big cloud of smoke. It looked like hash bash. I mean, they were smoking their brains out. So it's just getting to the point that even in a non-legal state, people don't give a shit, because I think that unless you're going to arrest 1,000 people, I mean, what is the? I don't see what the benefit is. And it was kind of refreshing to see, honestly.
There was a news story that came out.
Civil disobedience.
Yeah, like last week or this week, there was a news story that came out about a homeless man in Indiana, in I don't know, Gary or Fort Wayne it was, I believe, who has a car but doesn't have a house, and he makes money by driving to Michigan, buying a bunch of high THC stuff, driving it back to Indiana, and selling it. And at the time that the police got him, he had no insurance, no license, all that stuff. He had $5,000 on him and a bunch of cannabis that he bought up here in Michigan, and he was planning on doing the same thing again. So that doesn't hurt anybody. Stop messing with people. Come on. When are we going to learn? When will we learn?
I'll tell you, Rick, I actually have a good friend who was driving back, went from Colorado, was there, a disabled veteran in a wheelchair, and was coming back from Colorado through Missouri. Got pulled over, and they popped him for 3 grams, and they're trying to hit him with a felony for 3 grams. Pulled this poor guy in a wheelchair, pulled him out of the car, and they upgraded it. They're trying to say it was some sort of synthetic. Well, it was flour, 3 grams of flour, and it's shameful and it's disgusting. And I hate to see people still getting messed with for it.
As much as we like to think of America as this singular concept, we really are just a mosaic of individual tiles, and some of those tiles are darker than others, man. I just have to say, some of those tiles are not very friendly to us to tread upon as cannabis users. You know, I saw a map the other day. There are still 4 states that don't allow anything. Still 4 states, including Tennessee, who don't allow anything legal. Not CBD, not medicinal, nothing.
You go down to Broadway in Nashville, everybody's smoking. So what does that tell you?
Right.
In the meantime, you're also willing to fight for states' rights because you want it the way it is. You don't want it the other way. And you want Michigan to have the better laws than the states before it because it could. Now, will it catch up to some of the ideas of the states that came after it? Well, time will tell. But I think it's just funny how we find ourselves, you know, in one generation we would be on the side of state rights, and in another generation we may not be. The reality is that, you know what I would say to your friend Anton? Stay the fuck out of Missouri.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's fucked up. That was super fucked up.
Right, but Missouri has that right. And you know what? There ain't nothing in Missouri, and there's a reason there's nothing in Missouri.
You got to pass through. St. Louis still has lots of sports. Yeah. There's lots of culture there too. So there's lots of reasons to visit states.
And Nebraska is no different. These states know that people are coming through their state, and it's a game. I mean, these people have been doing this for years. It's all about how do we figure out who's got what in their car. Well, percentages is how we do it.
Yep.
And you know, I mean,
well,
simple math.
Look, when I grew up here in Michigan, everybody talked about stay the hell off the Ohio Turnpike. Didn't y'all hear that when you were coming up, right? Stay off the turnpike because those Ohio guys will get you. They'll bust you for anything. I went to school at DeVry University in Columbus, Ohio, and the school issued a letter to us that said, this is the OSU U of M football game at the Horseshoe this year. Please remove everything from your cars that might identify it as coming from Michigan, including your license plate, any bumper stickers that you may have that say, I love Wolverines. Cover them up because your car is going to get smashed. And, you know, sometimes that's just what we have to deal with going into other states. It's so much better than it was before, but we always hear the stories of what not to do when we visit neighboring states. It just sucks that as a medical person, especially someone in a wheelchair, that you.
We will get to some other stuff here a little bit later on, but there's a few different items that I'd like to discuss with our next guest coming on. Of course, great friends of the show, Latrish regular here, and Amie Carter. Latrish, Amie's has many hats, including right now a campaign for a state house seat in this election. So we want to talk about that. They also are they're drivers behind organization Weedsters that has come along recently and has become a pretty functional and proven organization to help get word out about important issues and help get support from citizens. And so there's a recent statement that was issued. We'll talk about what that means. There was some discussion about it last night on Medical Mondays, and I wasn't sure if it was given full context to understand what it was written for, what the content of it says, and to discuss intent. So we can get to that while you guys are here. And then we're talking about some other legislative stuff, which you guys are also tuned in with. And so as much as you can stand getting into that stuff too, I'd appreciate it. So of course, it's great to have you guys here, and we can get rolling on what's going on with the campaign.
Do you want to start or do you want me to? Campaign. Holy crap, that's a lot of work. So far, we've went through a couple trainings. We've been keeping in contact every Thursday with our regional director, kind of walking us through the systems. We have 4 systems that we had to learn. Just working a lot on creating her walk blocks. So basically you just break up where you have our voters and then what areas you have to walk, which is like 20,000 or something like that. So Just getting our volunteers in order, starting to create other tasks for them so that way we can start moving on with that. We're planning her kickoff event too as well. And what's that? Oh, and then we're going to start working on a fundraiser too as well. And then we have a couple dinners that we have to meet, and then we're going to go and see a couple other candidates that are running that we do know that are working on mental health issues, and the same as pro-cannabis candidates too as well. So we have an opportunity to meet a lot of new people that could be in the house with us. That happens for us too as well. And being able to create the relationships inside and outside of whatever the circumstances may be is going to be very beneficial, not only because she's been able to create some alliances with other candidates, but also is going to be very beneficial for everything else on the other side of the scope, which is for the mental health systems that she's been working with. And of course, working with making sure that we get some laws passed through the system that typically are not only because of uneducation and bias.
Right on. So Amie, for a little while you stepped up first. You were a lone candidate for the party for a while, and then a couple other people came on. But because you stepped up first and made the effort and reached out, you seemed to work with the party early on. With your candidacy, has the party itself kind of continued to work with you and be in support since other people have come on?
Yes, I mean, we still get the support, but as far as I know, the other Democrats are getting the same support as well. And I do know too that one of the other candidates, I heard that Tim Sneller, the current state representative, endorsed her. So I have that mountain, going on, but we've came up with some different ideas, and they'll feel confident in the race.
Okay, well, good.
She does have some endorsements. What are your endorsements right now? The AFL-CIO?
I've filled out, but I don't
Consumer
have
Energy.
them.
We're working on the
We're
Democrats
working on
right
getting
now.
some endorsements right now. I mean, there's like 200 different endorsements, and they take anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes to fill them out. And you have to, contact them to actually ask for what their process is. And some of them are very.
They'll send you a book like this thick.
Yeah.
They'll say, hey, read this before you do the survey or whatnot for the endorsement. And they are very time consuming. I think that a lot of candidates could possibly have more endorsements if they had somebody just doing endorsements, because there's a lot.
It's the season. Everybody's after that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Working with Zara on one too, so that's cool.
Yeah, well, very good. I mean, obviously, we support your candidacy. We had Jimmy Wilson on recently. There's others we want to get on here. Lily Chang Schulting, who we've had on before.
Cool. Very cool. I've been following her. She's neat.
Yeah, I don't know what's possible. I hear different things, I guess, depending on who I'm speaking to and what level of understanding working and stuff like that. But it'd be nice if we had a better composition of lawmakers in Lansing.
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to clarify something, if I could, Jamie.
Sure.
Recently, there was some things said online, and I just want to let people know a little bit. Cannabis isn't the beginning of my story. My story started over 12 years ago because my son was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and oppositional defiant disorder. And I literally fought the mental health care system in Michigan. Like, I fought for every resource that we had. I learned the ins and outs of it. And we lived in hell for a long time. And I won't get into all of that, but one day maybe, we can. And I have journals and everything. Like, we went through a lot. And I vowed that I was going to help change the mental health care system, improve the mental health care system for families and children, like 10 years ago. And I finally, I wasn't able to, because I was living, in that mental health care system, fighting for my son and myself and my daughter. But once I found cannabis, that helped my son more than anything ever has. And now it's given me the ability that I can do these things. And I started going to Lansing, fighting, you know, for these cannabis bills and for the caregivers and the patients. Those are number one. You have to save the caregivers and the patients. And because if not, then that affects my son and I. That affects 262 minor patients. That affects all of us. And so once I started going to Lansing there, it just hit me. And I'm like, this is what I need to do. So I hope that nobody has, you know, feelings that I was, you know, maybe groomed to do this, or, you know, some different things that I've heard, or, you know, oh, all of a sudden you want to wake up and become a politician. I was that girl. I was that girl that would, you know, count how many street lights were out in my community. I was the girl that, you know, ever since I was little, these issues have been something that have been a bother to me, something that I've wanted to correct. I am a community person. I have been doing volunteer work ever since I stopped working. I used to be in advertising and marketing. I made $65,000 a year. I had a great life, and it all changed because my son needed me. And I mean, there were times where I would return bottles for gas money, but I have been able to help many people, not even just in Michigan, throughout the United States. I have literally talked to at least 1,000 people that I have connected with throughout the last 10 years. I have 38,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I'm getting ready to utilize all of that. I have built these platforms, and I've fought to get to where I am today. And I'm going to continue to fight, and I'm going to continue to fight for the patients and caregivers. And to talk a little bit about Michigan Weedsters and how that even came about is, basically, we took the state and we divided it into 22 different sections, and we started assigning different people that wanted to help us. And we don't have the software system for that yet, but we're working on it. And basically, what we came to the conclusion of is that since 1963, we've only had 14 ballot initiatives, which means that only 14 times since 1963 have the people of Michigan got enough people that believed in them to take the ballots around to get the actual bill on that in the election. And only 8 times has it been approved. 8 times since 1963 has it passed. 2 of those are what happened in 2008 with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, and then 2018. Those are our trophies. Those are our trophies. We have to protect them because that's how we voted them in. We didn't vote them in so that corporate agenda can take over. We didn't vote them in so that we wouldn't be able to grow at our homes. Do you know what got people to the polls? Because they wanted to be able to grow at their homes. They wanted to be able to open the doors for these medical patients. And now that corporate government, they're trying to monopolize it and take it. No, we can't stand for that. But if there's power in numbers, power in numbers. So we're building our army. And basically our core value, we don't care what group you're in. It doesn't matter any of that. What matters is that we all work together to protect our trophies. That's it. That's the only common ground we have to have, that we need to protect what we voted on. And we can do that. If we get 5,000 people that are willing to take a stand and say, yeah, when I see a call to action, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pay attention. We need to open our eyes. I mean, our rights are being violated. Look, there's so many things going on right now.
And the forces against us are huge. They're
very huge. Very huge.
Sources, all the best operators, the best PR companies, the best lobbyists, and several of them.
Yep. But if we can get this army together, we can be on the same playing field. We can be stakeholders. We can be there. And if we can get 20,000 people to call to Lansing over the course of 2 days or 3 days, what kind of impact would that have? Has that ever happened? It's possible.
So speaking of that, there is a lobby day planned, hoping it's kind of short notice, but the 5512 is fast tracked. They're There's also like the brewing of the anti-caregiver sentiment in the Senate now, and the hiring of Mark Fisk by the MCMA to work on the Democrats for that kind of support. And idea being get it going there, then bring that momentum back into the House, where we worked really hard to work against its equivalent or its counterpart 5301, House Bill 5301, and its package of bills. So the messages, there's 2 or 3 good messages to leave, even still with some House representatives, even though the 5512 is over. So, and I kind of advising people, I know it's really frustrating, but instead of giving the lawmakers any grief over how they voted, and I've gone down that road a little bit with my own House rep, because I was frustrated after sending in information and speaking with the office and that kind of stuff, that there was still support for it. It's real easy to confuse people with these issues. People who are in support of it could even have really good intent. And so now to worry about keeping their support against these anti-caregiver stuff that's probably coming from the Senate, as far as speaking with your House representative goes, I think is the better use of the focus and time that you might get, or want to send them a message, or if you're in a meeting or during lobby day, you can secure a couple minutes with the office. Just a reminder that this stuff is still ongoing and that we still need their support to stave it off.
What day for the lobby day, Jamie, you did mention?
Oh, I'm sorry, May 19th, Thursday, May 19th. And again, last time, and for those who participated, Robin and the MICIA helped out and helped organize and allow us to use their office space. They're going to support us with their office space again, and some other stuff. Of course, they've been really, really good when we've had to go to Lansing and work and being supportive and helping out. And they're going to continue to do that. Brandy from Michigan ASA is helping to organize a lot of that. And people are going to get meetings with their House reps and with the senators. Of course, the senators is where the action is as far as getting information to them about 5512, because it's out of the House already. And that was probably our best chance to stop it. But if we're our next one's at the Senate, so we can put some focus there for now. Any other, and I want to say too, you guys were there. I know Rick couldn't make it. Matt Abel did show up though. There was a meeting last night that Richard Clement and Representative Cynthia Johnson kind of organized and to talk about what was going on legislatively, and they chose in part to focus in all the positive bills, including Jaden's bill, which of course Amie had spearheaded pretty much, starting off with my compassion, and then kind of taking that whole project over and working with Representative Garza, and the cutting out tax for patients that Cynthia Johnson herself introduced, and the deschedule bill. And there's positive bills to remind people they're probably not going to go anywhere. They don't have the momentum, but to keep that information in the air and to keep it going. And we'll be moving into a new session. There'll be a new composition of lawmakers. Some of those will remain. New people will be around that we'll have to meet with, and we just have to keep on.
Well, Jamie, I wanted to mention too, this is kind of what one of the benefits of the Weedsters would be. So, for example, we have to have lobby day. It's going to be obviously in the Senate this time around. The best example to have for this is if we had 2 people per Senate district. So we need 76 people. Now you wouldn't think that would be complicated considering, but it is. Mm-hmm. And that is the reason why we are continuously trying to build this army, and we've been reaching out and speaking to people, but you run into a lot of people who just don't care, and that's okay. But we have to start looking for people who will care, because I know this is important to a lot of people, and that is true as well. But also, this is very important to the kids that are using this program too. It's gone after that. And some people don't understand that. There's going to be a whole new set of rules and regulations and things of that nature. How much it's going to mess up some kids if they have to go through some programs or through some new evaluations, stricter rules, if they're on state aid or whatever the case may be. There are things that are supposed to be within the Medical Marijuana Act that are supposed to protect those particular marginalized people within this program. And so it's grasping at straws, because we do have rec now and everybody can grow with the way that they want to, but not with somebody who has a child who also is constantly monitored. Lots of opinions can walk in that door, because she does have, doctors and counselors and things of that nature that come into her house. And that's previous to where all the other friendly organizations that our state provides, you know, can get involved with too as well. So there's a lot of reasons why, you know, we're pushing as hard as that we are. But it'd be really, really great if we can get in a position now where we can keep on engaging people with information and teaching them in the most layman's terms as possible. Not even to be able to, you know, we do plan on like providing templates and things of that nature. But what we want to be able to do is provide information that will stick to their heart, so that when they make these phone calls, they understand how to actually have the conversation.
And 5512 is a difficult one.
It is. It's very hard to have people understand. So, you know, I had to dig really, 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 really deep to be able to even let it, you know, sit within myself first before I understood how much more it is than just 5512. This is legitimately connected to, and I'm going to say this, in my opinion, this has nothing to do with candidate Carter. I feel like 5512 is so deeply connected to the war on drugs, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, some of the tactics involved are stuff that we had to deal with in the regular courts during the course of, you know, medical marijuana early days and enforcement and misinterpretation of the act. And
drug courts have made their decision on what drugs they're going to use. They can only use up to, I think, 7 or 8 that are within their program, right? So as I continue to keep on saying, they don't want you to use your drugs, they want you to use their drugs. And that's the bottom line to it. And there's judges, and then there's pharmaceuticals. And if you go and you look at how much, like the fiscal plan and the budget for the MATS program that they're used for this kind of situation, it just goes all the way back down to people are going to fail. They're paying $6,000 to get into the system, and it's a cycle. And they fight for this money because it's easy to get into it. So we're really, really educating ourselves behind some of these things even further, because there's a good chance that every time something like this walks in from the federal government, we're going to get screwed no matter what. So where do we nail the door shut? Where does it stop? I mean, we've even thought about maybe contacting a couple of different constitutional attorneys about figuring out a way to even create some type of referendum to be able to stop any type of corporations from being able to, I would say, reorganize any act that comes in or amendment that comes into our Constitution through a voter initiative. The money is so stacked high against us, it's ridiculous. So how do you get around that? Then you start a bill that will make it so if it is part of the tribe agreement within the state, why is our state so willingly and open to let somebody else impede on that? So that's something else that we're considering and talking about too as well. That's a big, big step. I don't know if it can happen or not, but the fact is that these are the angles and the spaces that we're going with all of this. And it's just really important to me, as far as I'm concerned, to make sure that that information is also put out there too. There's a lot of ways that we can support, you know, making sure that bad guys aren't getting us. There's a lot of ways that we can support making sure we're collecting the data that needs to be built for us to have a case when we stand in front of these people, which is one of the biggest problems that I've seen so far in my situation, is obviously they're going to walk in with millions of dollars in campaigns and getting people involved and PR and whatnot. And we plan to be that mere reflection.
Right on.
Written testimony.
And we need written testimony.
For 5512, we need written testimony for anybody that it has would affect, that has been in that situation. And we can take it around. If we can get 5 or 10 written testimonies, that'd be fabulous.
About drug court,
mental health court, veterans court, any kind of written testimony. Whatever we can get from them, and how it would impact their life, or how, you know, it has impacted their life, and if this goes through, you know. But any kind of written testimony. When I talked to Senator Irwin, he said that would be great. And then we could even copy it and take it to all of 38 senators on levy day so that everyone has a written copy, and then also email it and call them.
Very nice. And, you know, a lot of other individuals will be doing the same, and we encourage that also. And a lot of advocacy groups formally will be doing that, and hopefully there'll be opportunity for testimony at committee hearings, although we do hear it's fast-tracked, which means some of that's formality, but it's an opportunity to get on record. And no reason to stop, even though it's, you know, some huge challenges as we keep on discussing. All right, so let's talk about the statement that Weedsters put out. What's the story leading up to that? And then we'll go into what it actually says, and you know, what's
all right. So we went to Lansing because we had some classes that day, or the next day afterwards.
Well, I was invited as an honorary guest. Jamie Cooper invited me as an honorary guest, and it was a women's event. And yeah, we went. I didn't really feel like
Expungement magazine, which is on this boycott list, which some people like take to an extreme. I mean, in their view, this is important to their connection.
We've also pointed out, Jamie, a few different times too, as well. You know, just on social media with other groups and things of that nature. We have also spoken about that situation where we don't agree that it should be on there. And there's a lot of different reasons. We'll go through it right now, but I can tell you
that's the point where it's past the core group of issues, and there's other things on there. To some people, that's very important, and that's information that everybody should know, and you got to be strict by this, and let's just really, you know, fizzle this out by being strict about it. Other people think that stretches it out.
It's lost its value, and it's now a hate roster. That's what other people think. It's lost its value.
On the other side, so in this situation, though, it's weird to many of us, no matter, you know, where the fact that somebody would spend time and energy, especially directed at thinking that you guys have departed from any of the work that, you know, you've been motivated to do and have been successful with, and have really given up a lot of time and energy and thought and research and sharing and stepping up to run for state office. I mean, come on, just kind of an absurdity when I saw that, and I was reactionary in my response, and like, this is a weak analysis, man.
Yeah, I think we're at the point now where we have a subset of extremists really in the industry or within the community who have become extreme in their views to the point
think that's necessarily new. I think this is how it's manifesting itself.
Yeah, sure. It's progressing to the point to where you know, people are being attacked, and the conversations, there's no dialogue. You know what I'm saying? Like,
should have been around 14, 15.
That's where the common ground comes in. That's when we put in our statement said something about, you know, mutual agreement is common ground. And that's what we were talking about. Is as caregivers and patients, we don't have to agree with each other about everything, except for the end goal. And particularly our end goal is to make sure that we can make sure that our kids are getting their medicine. We make sure that our families and your families and everybody here that is a medical patient continue being a patient, because eventually that's going to go away if we don't fight for it. I mean, just really, that's the reality. And I listened to a lot of cynicism, and I argued with people about it. And even no matter what anybody says to us about that, there's no way you're going to be able to do that, or there's no way that you're going to be able to do this. We're still going to try. We're still alive. We still have blood in our veins. And why would we stop until it's an absolute no?
Yeah,
but
and I agree.
The common ground is when we get online and we're educating people and we're telling people about where they should go, this, that, and directing them, the negative people that come in and drive people away is the problem. It's like, we worked very, very hard to get people to work with us and to be able to save something not because we're trying to be heroes. I mean, that's freaking like the icing on the cake. But the fact is we're already here. Why are we going to stop? But it is very,
So,
very hard when you
there
have
will be people.
these numbers dwindle every month. You're losing people who are registered, and we're losing support at the same time. It's like turning the tap on every time we get full. So common ground means that common ground of the same end goal. And the end goal is to make sure that 5300 doesn't pass, 5301, and on and on and on and on and on.
So
That's
during
what we're here
during
to
the last
do for that.
fall, when we were specifically faced with that, with those bills, there was, I thought it was awesome. There was a coming together of the political spectrum. Of a diverse
250
community.
people signed on to the hashtag no changes thing, and that was businesses. That's there's a ton of support at that particular moment. You're right, there was.
Yeah.
And 5512 is a little bit more difficult to explain. I mean, we're getting to some people. It's even almost difficult to explain why that is. I think judges have a lot of credibility on the surface. They say this is what we want. We lose some votes just on that alone. So far, I've noticed. You can take this set of circumstances and make it sound like it's a really good thing, like you're actually moving things forward, like you're allowing the ability for medical marijuana patients to have a chance to participate in these volunteer courts now because of this.
It sounds progressive.
Yeah, it comes off like that, exactly.
Mhm.
But really, so we don't have to, agree on everything. But those things that we do agree on, let's realize that we've got a better chance of accomplishing those if we all make a push on it at the same time, with no obligation to change your position on other things.
And another thing too, is maybe we didn't change your position, but you're going to see that when you work in certain parameters in this space, you're going to have to make some moves. And just like, anything else, you can't tell everybody about it. So have we not earned your trust yet? Because we have not made a dime from any of this at all.
Mentally agile.
I can kind of relate to that.
Right.
We like the dumbest sellouts ever.
Yeah,
To be honest with you, you know what I mean? So it's really a matter of like, if you don't trust us, then you don't have to.
Yeah.
But I'm
Here's the
telling
thing,
you,
though.
we are doing it with good intention, and I promise that.
And I'm gonna speak to you right now with all due respect. This whole attacking authority is kind of what the marijuana industry has been based on. That's what our culture is based on. We attacked the authority that was Bouchard. We attacked the authority that was Rick Snyder and Bill Schuette. We've attacked all kinds of authority, and even before the medical era too. Now that people like the folks on this particular call are the authority, people are still attacking what they perceive to be authority. And it's really not a new function of the community itself. And I'll say that there are just some people you cannot reach. In my dozen years, and Adam's got a lot more than I do, but my dozen years of experience here tells me there are just some people who you have to block. And you have to block on social media, but also block out of your mind as well too. Because there's that fringe group you're never going to satisfy. And if what you do is you spend so much time trying to justify what you do to this tiny little fringe, you're expending so much energy that should be going towards talking to the people who are along with you, who are already aligned with you, and getting them recruited to move forward with your campaign.
And we've seen this with every ballot initiative that got to the point where we had printed ballots, meaning you're out there actually collecting signatures for what's on this piece of paper. And you had multiple, when I say multiple, 2, 3, 4 other groups saying, no, we don't agree with that. We should do it this way. Well, great. Do it that way. But in the meantime, we have this piece of paper printed. And if we could collect these signatures, we're moving the ball forward. We're a lot farther ahead than your idea, which we like your idea. We're not negating your idea. But here's where we're at now. And I've said this 1,000 times. This is continually always about moving the ball forward. And the increments may be too small for some people, or a lot farther than some people are used to, because some people, there's some of us that never thought we'd be where we're at today, and some people, and I'm not speaking to anyone specifically, but some of you have no idea how we got where we are today, because you couldn't imagine a day when it wasn't like this.
Yeah, but just don't give the fringe your energy. Don't give the fringe your energy, Amie, Trish. Although you may feel obligated to respond to Facebook attacks, the most important thing is that you don't spend too much time distracting yourself by that action. Continue to move forward in the direction you already have. The proof that you already created is enough for almost all of us. Quit focusing on that teeny little bit that it's not enough for.
Y'all are doing a good job.
Marlena from the media director from Great Lakes Expungement Network has joined us. We'll talk to her a little bit later because GLEN is doing some cool stuff and is about ready to experience its first birthday and some other cool stuff that we'll talk about. But we'll continue to talk about this. So what specifically does the statement say?
It basically, hold on, that was weird. It basically, gosh, I read it a million times. I can't even start from the beginning. It basically talks about how we know that our friends at Medical Mondays, we love Medical Mondays, we watch it all the time. We understand the premise of everything, and we make the same moves and choices that the boycott says, especially when if we go, but we don't go to dispensaries. We don't have to. But if we did, but we do encourage our friends and family and things like that too as well. But where we're standing and the space that we are, there's the big caregiver circle, and then there's us, and then there's all the different ones around us, right? So we choose wisely. Either way, I said that it was a great tool for people to, make an educated decision and a supportive decision to support patients and caregivers. Thanks to Rick, I picked this up as a wonderful thing to say, but it is a great tool for people to use to help make better decisions on what they want to support. And I added that there. I also said that that we need to find some type of common ground. A lot of people took that in a lot of different directions. And the fact is that what that means is that the caregivers and the patients need to find some type of common ground. The arguments and the fighting and all the things that are happening are what going to make this boat sink. And I was not a cynic. I was not a cynic until recently.
So everybody agrees that medical marijuana patients shouldn't be discriminated against from being able to participate in volunteer courts.
Right.
We can all agree with that. In the old days, everybody used to hate Bill Schuette, and those were opportunities to.
Our commonality was our enemy, right?
Where we all are, right? And
right.
And there's many other things.
I get a little bit sassy. I get a little sassy.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I said I get a little bit. I'm just towards the end of it. Basically, is this like this is like the leg that we have to lean on right now, literally, because we're not getting the type of support that is necessary. That's not why Amie went to this deal, but
there's nothing wrong with
it all
garnering that
kind of happened
support.
at the same time.
Anyway, there's nothing wrong with going there, regardless, and making those connections and doing that networking that for which it was created and provided. I mean, that was a good situation for somebody.
Amy Brown met with her, amazing human being. Has some great things that she wanted to bring up with Anton for the Hero Project. Was pretty cool. So we had that conversation. Of course, Anna Jacobs, loved talking to her about all the science stuff. Great allies to have for us right now. We need to go to testimony for some purpose or reason, if they would be willing and want to. But how do you have those relationships if you don't put yourself in front of them?
Well, you have to remember too, some people are just not in a good place, and they project their animosity or whatever they're going through onto others. And by giving their argument any power, even a response, let them snuff themselves out. Let them fall by the wayside, because people who are trying to maintain that positivity and, like Adam says, move the ball forward, we're going to do that.
So, you understand how that works. Somebody has a perspective. They believe that they are doing the righteous thing, that they are doing everything you have to do to protect patients and caregivers, and they have a true passion for it. And we think it's an extreme position, and it's kind of a misfire in some ways, as we're discussing here. But I mean, as with the lawmakers even not voting correctly, I just kind of think that there's some bigger vision of intent, and to have less conflict over worrying about like putting somebody down for being a fringe or extremist, to still having that person be right there when we're talking about very specifically working against 5512 or peeling back existing caregiver rights or something like that, if possible. I mean, we're human beings, and don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting
We're just
efficiency.
going to spend more time trying to feel like what we're doing is right instead of wrong, and that's basically what it comes down to. And if there needs to be conversations to make that a better situation, that's what it has to be. The fact of the matter is that we have some work to do, and it's just getting to the point where we cannot be referees for people anymore. We have to actually start doing it. It has to be done.
Their own kind of way of approaching this, and and because it doesn't fit
Absolutely.
in somebody's, doesn't mean that it you need to alter anything that you're doing that makes sense. What you describe makes sense. You have a good litmus test right there to determine that. So affiliation with Sensi that happens to be on the list doesn't make that evil because Sensi's associated to the entire situation. There are these
Right.
big money interests, these money grubbers, these people that support peeling back existing rights. They pour a bunch of money into a program or a nonprofit, and then that group does some real work, gets somebody out of jail, gets people.
I'm going to tell you one thing before we jump off here, Jamie. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to make a broader perspective to everybody right now. And this is hours and weeks and almost probably a year and a half or more of thought. After following, I tore that Freedom of Information Act document from Delta 8 apart. I went as far as I follow every merger, acquisition, you name it. The real truth of the matter is that the biggest, like you said, hill that we have to climb also should be boycotted too as well. But you know how unreasonable that is? You're looking at Dykma and Aquita and SGCI and multiple other lobbyist organizations that work directly with the people who are building this program.
Yeah.
And the fact is that means that you should jump onto Enbridge, and you should jump onto Pfizer, and you should jump onto Bayer, and you should jump onto probably about 85 more other companies that we should be boycotting. We also should be boycotting Bell Tire. We should also be boycotting anything that Tom Sedini owns. And that goes down to casinos, to the amphitheater, to you name it.
So those things are like in that core group that we discussed. Like if it were reduced to that, that's more of a an agreeable focus with the masses of what to worry about, kind of a thing too, I think.
You're taking one small chunk of their pocket. It doesn't bother them. That's what I'm saying.
No, but what does bother them is having their name on a list and having it talked about. And there are people that boycott those places. I mean, I know that ever since it was exposed that Bell Tire was who they were and financiers and all that it's changed talk in our industry. You can't expect everybody to be aware of all kinds of boycotts and all kinds of protests, and all we can do is educate people as to why and what it means, and the best we have is that people actually are paying attention to this. And if you talk to the industry people, they will tell you that they've heard of it. They may not agree with it. It may not bother them. They may ignore it, but they've heard of it. That says something right there.
Rick Anstis himself posted just this last day or two that they denied common citizen the opportunity to participate in an event that he's pulling forth. That's the latest in a whole series of instances where companies like Loom and Skymint have been denied participation in some of the, especially in northern Michigan, in some of the big events that we've had over the last 12 months, simply because they are part of the MCMA, Michigan Cannabis Manufacturers Association, or they have predatory practices in the way that they engage in licensing, specifically in reference to Loom. So there are reasons for us to boycott certain companies. But the fact is, our people boycott with their dollars, and their dollars are spent on cannabis. When you go beyond telling someone to boycott a dispensary and you start saying boycott, beyond that, I think your expectation of people's participation in that is really slim. So the best we can hope for is we say stay away from these particular companies. That's the best we can go for. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Oh no, you're good. I'm just saying, looking into some of the people that own some of these companies.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I understand that it is actually, it's beneficial. I mean, I work in events too, and I won't mess with any of them at all. But the fact is that what I'm trying to say is that I understand the boycott, and it's not even necessary to go that far into the spectrum of things too as well. But there are some on there that are so wealthy and so large that I feel like it's necessary to do more. And that's it.
well,
And that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, good for you. And by the way, I thought your statement was on point. It's sad that we have to make these statements publicly in order to refute things that people say. However, I will point out that it really seems like there were 3 or 4 voices driving this conversation, which led to this entire avalanche. And if we just blocked those 3 or 4 people and stopped paying attention to them, there would have been no avalanche, and our attention would be spent on the Carter campaign.
Yes, sir.
Well said, Rick. Well said.
Well, we appreciate you guys. We're gonna jump off here and actually do campaign stuff. So, but we do appreciate us letting them come on and talk about some things. I never wanted to go on medical Mondays the way that we are, which freaking sucks. But it's important that we have these conversations, and that's why I say, that the particular situation may have been uncomfortable, but at the same time, it got people talking. So the silver lining of this is there are actually some really positive conversations that were going on between people who normally don't have them. So we appreciate that time, and we'll catch up with you guys at the next one.
Appreciate it. Appreciate all your research and everything
Thank
too,
you.
Trish.
Yeah, for sure, man. You guys have a great day. And I like your shirt, Adam. Puzzle pieces, autism. Have a good one. Bye.
Autism Red Wings hoodie gets more love every single moment. Marlena, that's a big smile on your face. Welcome to the program. We really appreciate you being here, and thanks for your patience as we wrapped up that segment.
No, it was very interesting, and thank you for having me. I also love your jersey, so.
thank you.
And Marlena is the communications director for Great Lakes Expungement Network, as I said, has taken that responsibility on, and has done a great job of social media, and also now is going to be doing a lot of the communications. We'll have Josie on from time to time, but she's going to be doing other stuff, and Marlena will be primarily filling in that role. And looking forward to having some conversations and probably seeing you at some other shows, and hopefully letting people know about what's going on. And so just a little bit about yourself. Then we're going to talk about GLEN just for a few minutes, because we're coming up on a year anniversary with GLEN. Had a lot of good accomplishments this year. Got good plans for next year. It's a nonprofit that makes it easy and free for people to get their records expunged with something to do with cannabis and a need. And there's a lot of applicants out there, and each one requires a lot of money. And so we're going to try to encourage some ways of helping us raise some funds but let people know why, and what we're doing, and have you describe a little bit about whatever aspect of that do you want to go, like what we've accomplished in this last year, that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Let me see. I have some statistics or some numbers here I can go through. So on May 25th, GLEN is going to be 1 year old, which is very exciting. So we have, let me see here. And last year, we have completed more than 1,000 eligibility screenings, over 400 applications for expungement, and expanded the program to reach all 83 Michigan counties. So that's really big. We are the state's only fee-free, full-service expungement program for cannabis offenders, which is really important and big. kind of trying to set the gold standard for that kind of thing in Michigan. Let's see here. So it is a collection of community-based organizations, cannabis companies, criminal defense attorneys, lots of really cool, interesting people I got to meet through working with GLEN. Let's see. We're proud to provide eligibility screenings, free expungement services, and resources to help reach everyone's expungement goals. There's an estimated 1 million people in Michigan that qualify for a criminal record expungement, and it's expensive and it can be very daunting just kind of on the surface, not knowing much about it. So marijuana expungement impacts nearly,
No, a cheap basic one. Like if something goes perfect, there's no real issues. If everything just lines up perfectly to do one of these, it can be as little as $500 or $600, which is still a decent amount of money. But I mean, compared to somebody hiring a lawyer to go through that process or something, you know, you can see we work with lawyers who offer discounted rates, who are doing that to help out and that type of stuff. And then it can get up to like $1,300, you know, given certain sets of circumstances and extra work that needs to be done and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, just to put it in perspective, when we talk about that, it's, you know, that's kind of expensive. We offer this for free, and we've been really supported very well by the industry so far, but we're trying to demonstrate what we're doing to see if we can get some more support and keep this going, because there's a lot of interest in getting this done.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And we're looking to team up with like provisioning centers to designate proceeds or something like that for GLEN on the 25th. I know we've done some like collaborations with Scout, the Pudding Pop concentrate that came out. We've got Sugar Bush with Freetown. So just trying to help, you know, raise those funds so we can keep this, you know, fee free and just really help as many people as we can, because this shouldn't be holding people back from, you know, things like jobs and housing and things like that, especially with it being legal. It's so silly.
And when you say we've got these things with these companies, they've got certain products and they're designating them to give portions of the proceeds from those sales to the nonprofit. You know, obviously to help out for this. So there's
amazing. I definitely recommend them.
With the little net with the little logo on it. You know, if you get that, you're helping expunge a record. But we hope that that's becomes successful. So, in about the actual birth date is in about 2 weeks. So
the 25th, Wednesday.
So you know, leading up to that though, we're trying to inspire people to, like, when they have opportunities to do those online like fundraisers or things like that, to keep Great Lakes Expungement Network as a nonprofit in mind as someplace to put money toward, to help us get into the next year, utilizing this foundation that's been created this last year with, you know, everybody involved in the board and stuff. And by the way, you come to this whole world by way of having a strong patient testimonial with being a cancer survivor and
yep.
And currently working for Allswell, retailer in the west side of the state.
Yep, that's where I'm at right now. I'm in our non-THC storage room right now.
Right on.
Yeah.
So,
and then I was going to say too, people can make contributions, donations through Facebook and Instagram too. So if anybody wants to donate, it goes to a good cause. Like I said, expunging records. So it's really important work.
Yeah, and it's GreatLakesExpungementNetwork.org. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I'll put that out there.
Yeah.
No, Great Lakes Expungement Network. You just recently worked with the prosecutor in one county, specifically to do a particular event, which is kind of revolutionary, don't you think?
We worked with the county, the prosecutor's office, the city, and Wellflower. And there it was other places other like retailers knew about it in the area and were supportive, and from that wanted to help raise money too in other ways that we're still going to work with them on, like in-store stuff, rounding up type donations or whatever. So it was really positive. Yeah, it was great. And our Jimmy Wilson, who I know we didn't probably talk about him, he was on last week, but candidate for the 32nd district out of the Ypsilanti area for state house rep, was also there and supporting.
I was asking Marlena actually, but yeah.
I'll just echo what Jamie said.
Oh, that's so cheap. Although he did
I
say it
know,
all.
I'm
He
sorry.
got,
He didn't
he got
finish the
all the
logo.
important stuff. He did. That's no question. He got it all.
I think that's it. So that's another place too where people could donate. Every little bit helps. There are some people that do like $10 a month. You know how all those things work. But if you care about it, this is a good one to get behind. As Josie always says, when you're talking about just having the very general goal or the general obligation to help correct the damage caused by the war on cannabis, helping people out in this way is one of the most direct ways to do that.
If people wanted to volunteer their time, Marlena, if people wanted to volunteer their time, would they be able to do so with Great Lakes Expungement Network, and how would they make that connection?
Yeah, I mean, me and Josie both view the Facebook and Instagram, so that could be an easy place just to kind of reach out. I know that out there, but she's always willing. And then I can give out Josie's email too if ever anybody wants to volunteer. It's josie@sonsanddaughtersunited.org. So, yeah.
Josie with the Josey, josie@sonsanddaughtersunited.org if you'd like to volunteer, or if you're interested in having the Great Lakes Expungement Network work with your particular provisioning center or cultivation center or anything. Obviously, you're looking for corporate partners as well as looking for volunteers. And it seems to be, unfortunately, no shortage of people needing the service. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think it
Unless
was
you
what
want
was
Marlena to answer that question.
yeah,
I'm
it was
sorry.
what was it? 250,000 people in the Great Lakes state alone can get marijuana expungement. So I mean, to help, want to help everybody, of course, but we need the money. It's expensive.
Mm-hmm. Right. And of course, when they made expungement possible for other crimes, they made some of them automatic and they made some of them easy peasy. But with cannabis crimes, it seems like they left an additional layer of bureaucracy in there, which is one of the reasons why it costs the amount that Jamie was talking about, somewhere between $900 and $1,200 or $1,300 per case, which Great Lakes Expungement Network does for free for the people that they sponsor. Correct, Marlena?
Yes, yep, fee free. You have to get like the fingerprints and all this stuff too. And I know that we've been trying to cover the cost of doing the fingerprints and all that stuff, or refunding things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it.
Fantastic. It's such a wonderful thing. There are several other organizations doing expungements, but you mentioned something, Marlena, in passing that I think really should be talked about a little bit more, and that's that the Great Lakes does sponsor 100% those fees for people. So there may be some folks who are capable of paying for their expungement, but most of the people I think that require the service really are not at that level, not at a grand. Yeah. People just can't pull that out.
No, every place is different too. Every area is easier or more difficult depending on how that little individual system, little court area, is choosing to handle it. And so some of those cost more just because there's more steps involved and that type of stuff. So.
Prosecutors that have an opportunity to protest the expungement, do they not?
They do.
Mm-hmm. And that sometimes causes additional time and additional expenditure, right?
Yeah, there has to be a hearing, for these. Yep. So, but some places it lines up pretty easily. Everybody's pretty smooth about it. No objection, no reason to make a big deal about it. Just grant it, What I understand, Paul Talinda, who comes on this show quite often, works with us pretty heavily. He could answer all that stuff, but it's pretty complicated in some areas, pretty smooth in others.
Marlena, how long have you been with Great Lakes Expungement Network?
Actually, through my old manager at Allswell, actually, and kind of connected just because I have such a passion for cannabis. Like Jamie was saying, I went through cancer treatment and everything like that. So and I've been a med patient since 2017. So I've always kind of been very passionate about this, and I just wasn't sure how to get involved. And I love it because this has just been so amazing. It's beautiful work. It feels good to get to do something good for people that people need.
Well, we have several organizations in Michigan doing great things. Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition, the Cannabis Caucus, the Michigan Democratic Party. We talk oftentimes about Hero Project here with Anton and working with veterans. The fact is, there's just such a need for a variety of services that there's no one organization that could encompass all of those particular needs. So it's important for individual agencies or individual organizations, like we talked about, to survive and thrive, to be able to provide those services. And Michigan NORML, of course, and Michigan ASA, with some of the leadership that we provide in the state for directing people to political action when necessary, especially on a local or on a state level. So the blend of particular organizations that we have now really, it reflects exactly how needy our community is. And there's no better persons to solve our problems than us, as far as I'm concerned. And Great Lakes Expungement Network is just made up of a whole bunch of people that have a lot of cannabis industry experience, cannabis community experience, I should say.
That's right.
Yeah. I feel like I learn something new every second of every day, honestly. Like, I have so much to learn from, everyone here and just people in the cannabis industry. It's amazing. And I just love how there's a real sense of community, which I really appreciate about this industry.
Well, Josie and Brenda Scoggin, who are kind of the core of this, as well as sons and daughters, those together, the two of them are a force of nature. Individually, a tornado, but together.
Hey, Josie was at that Sensi party too.
Yeah. So nobody's trying to minimize Josie, right? Just right. I'd love to see him try.
Yeah. She went there and networked and gained support for what she is doing also. There's really nothing wrong with that, as I was kind of getting into before with the conversation with Trish. You can still not accept, work against those same organizations for trying to do the things that they're trying to do that we are concerned about, peeling back rights and those types of things. So it's a weird thing, but the parameters are limited to where they stop making sense. Just from my perspective.
In our industry, there was a time when anybody that worked with government or talked to government or tried to get government to do things for them was a betrayer or a traitor, because you never talked to government about cannabis, and it was just, there's this group of people and then there's this group of people. Well, then it became more mainstream. And now it's more of a, you're in business world or you're not in the business world. What the reality is that most of us walk with one foot in both worlds. Mr. Hash Bash, we had a wonderful Hash Bash Cup. Actually, some regulated market players participated in the Hash Bash Cup for the very first time. Same thing at the North Street Fair for the very first time. So what we're seeing is there really is a blurring of those lines between the regulated and the unregulated market. Anton knows that we just spoke to the director about this a couple of weeks ago when we had our cannabis consumer meeting, the melding of these two industries and how we need to allow it to continue to do that on a natural way and not interfere with it at all, because it's really how our culture evolves.
We're not trying to create rivalries. We're trying to create alliances. Right. And that's the one thing I found, especially like with Great Lakes Expungement Network. I've had good experiences and good conversations with people on all different spectrums, because what I'm trying to do with Hero Project may have already been done through Great Lakes Expungement Network. And there are ideas that can better our program and vice versa. And that is how you help the most people that you can and have this diversified community of nonprofits and industry players and for-profit players and people that are willing to put their time and their resources into something that they're passionate about and help people. At the bottom, at the end of the day, if everybody's fighting, expungement isn't happening. Veterans are missing out on access. Communities are not being bettered. And at the end of the day, that is what any of this work is. If we're not doing that, then just shut the lights off and we all go home, I guess, right?
Well, with Amie and Trish, they're working so hard on a campaign, and that's such a demanding thing to have to take time out in order to address some stupidity like this was just was a ridiculous waste of their resources. They should just be able to continue forward and not have to worry about people carping and sniping from the sidelines. So, our industry is always had that. Boy, when we had legalization, when we first started talking about, Adam's left, Jamie knows, we had people imported from other states specifically targeting to attack us. And the fact is it was super ugly, and, confrontations, physical confrontations in places and such. So it's just, we have to work around it. And my thought lately has been work with people who are already aligned with me, and don't try to change the minds of people who have historically not shown the ability to change their mind.
100%.
Yeah. So Marlena, you've done such a great job with Great Lakes Expungement Network. What's the plan? You're the media coordinator. So how are we going to see new examples of Great Lakes in the media?
Yes. So, definitely follow us on Instagram, Great Lakes Expungement Network. Find us on Facebook. I try to be pretty good about posting things like events that we're at, events we're going to. Definitely want to start, posting more about our 1 year coming up too, and ways that people can kind of get involved. I think that was a really good thing that you brought up, Rick. Like, how can people get involved? That's really important, and I hadn't even thought of that yet. I'm just so focused on just trying to just get everybody to know what GLEN is, but that is so important.
And we're talking about a 1 year anniversary of GLEN, and you kind of recapped some of the accomplishments that you've had during that 12-month period. That's pretty impressive. It's mostly on a volunteer basis too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm a volunteer myself. I work full time at all as well. I just try to do this as much as I can because I love it. It's, like I said, it gives me a lot of purpose.
Jamie devotes a lot of time to Great Lakes Expungement Network. We would be remiss to not make note of all of the
that's all true. Should go without saying, but I will say that the Redemption Foundation does help out when necessary. Of course, I'm supported to be there by the Botanical company itself, and we've developed some other good relationships. There's really good infrastructure set up to launch into our second year, and continue this and even do a better job. Really, if we can build off of it.
Yeah. Everybody on this call has given back to the community. I think, Adam, how many people have you helped through the years? It's probably, can you even come up with a number?
No, but to be honest, it was much more fun when it was illegal. I get people that would call me and say that they had a loved one who was in need and they were scared to death. That was exhilarating, but hundreds and hundreds of people over the years. And not the people you would think either. I'm always shocked by who never called.
Well, Antoinette Sarfa tells a story about when she first received a diagnosis, or she first realized that cannabis might be helpful for her multiple sclerosis, that you were the first person to reach out to her, Adam. And that was a connection that she appreciated at that time and has enjoyed since.
She got some good, immediate, much needed cannabis.
Yeah.
And that's just what we did. I didn't care. We didn't care who you were.
We've all done that.
And
connect A with B.
We helped you out. That's all.
Yeah. But that's the compassionate nature of the industry, which existed prior to the money motive, right?
That's the difference between marijuana culture and cannabis industry.
Yeah.
I don't fault the industry. I grew up in retail. I understand what's going on. But this is not what marijuana is about. This is what cannabis retail is about. It is what it is. But that doesn't change the facts. And the fact is that, generations were damaged by this product due to unneeded and unwanted law enforcement. And now it'll take generations for the healing process. We're just at the infancy.
I was talking to someone who was a breeder the other day, and they discussed the difficulty in trying to rejuvenate some of the landrace strains or some of the traditional cannabis strains, because over the course of prohibition, with everyone, doing things in a semi-scientific way, they had bred out most of the landrace strains for some of the original intent and to modify it in order to gain greater pungency or greater THC. So trying to recapture those original strains. We also had a Pinconning Paralyzer here in Michigan was a similar story too, where that was gone for a while, and it's now trying to be revitalized by some folks. So
Granny's panties.
yeah, what's Swampy's stuff too?
Free Leonard.
Free Leonard, correct. That's really what I was trying to say. Which is a tribute to Leonard Peltier, who we did a wonderful episode on in this particular show, and who still suffers in jail.
Do an update some point this year.
Not even Marlena can help him, unfortunately. That's a federal prisoner with a real sad story. So,
and that story was pretty well laid out on that episode. So if people want to check it out, that's a good place to go. Although the information is pretty vast, because there's a lot of people who care about this, and there's a lot of stuff out there.
So what else should we know about Great Lakes Expungement Network? What else can we look forward to? Where can we look forward to seeing you, rather, in public?
Yeah, so let me pull up my events that we have coming up. I know there's going to be a golf outing on, let's see here, the 23rd, Monday the 23rd. Yeah. And then I know we're going to the Michigan Gems and Genetics in Morley, Michigan this coming weekend. I believe Josie's going to be a speaker there, an educational speaker. And then I know that Josie and the attorney Paul are going to be going to the iHemp Expo next weekend. And then, of course, we're having we're trying to figure something out for our 1 year.
The iHemp
right now.
Right, yes.
We'll see you there. I'm going to be speaking at the iHemp Expo as well, so I think there'll be a lot of familiar faces.
That's the weekend following that. We know we're earmarking. That's one of the reasons why Brandy wanted to earmark that date, to have chances of more people around maybe to participate. But that's May 19th precedes that iHemp. I think it's 2 or 3 days.
2 days, yeah. The Friday, Saturday, yep.
And as we said before, I think
there's a lot of speakers going there. Very interesting.
Adam and Richard Clement and Dr. Detroit, OG panel.
Yeah.
That's reason to go and hang out alone.
Those are always fun.
Yeah. So.
Well, I actually will have to
go?
get going back to work. I'm so sorry. Thank you for having me.
Okay, and if there's anything we didn't get in, anything we need to address, please let us know now. And then otherwise, thank you very much. And for sure, you'll be back on giving us updates on GLEN and encouraging people to support us.
But thank you so much, guys. It was great to see you. Thank you. Bye.
GLEN's just a great charity to contribute to on an individual or on a corporate level. She was a trooper broadcasting from inside a closet, essentially.
Lots of stuff.
Closet.
Of course, Peanut Butter Gersh, friend of the show, was Swampy's caregiver leading up toward the end of his life. He died of cancer.
Cancer is a horrible thing. I think what you find is a lot of people that have gone through a lot of these experiences, either you have cancer, mental health issues, and really that's where where a lot of my passion came from. I had no idea. I really did. I grew up as a kid of the DARE program back in the 80s, 90s. You know what I mean? It was cannabis was bad. And then until, you go through life and you experience life, and sometimes it's not always pleasant, and you need healing. And the healing process that cannabis has allowed, I think for many of us, it was an eye opener. It was an epiphany for me, really. And, I don't have the experience Adam had. I mean, to be able to see the things you've seen and the evolution in the process, it's a lifetime's worth of experience.
I like to ask a guy like you with your background, Anton, how do you feel about the fact that the government lied to you?
I would say that to me.
Not just like a small lie either. This was This
Big
was
lie.
a major,
Which
Generations long
particular
lie.
what outline the lie for everybody?
just the cannabis lie, the weed lie,
Okay.
the marijuana. I mean,
He restricted cannabis
grew up
from
with
you
the
as if
CARE
it were
program.
dangerous when it's not. Okay.
Yeah, I would say for me, that's one of the, I don't want to say, I don't know if it's offensive. I don't know if offensive is the right word. It was, and I'll preface this with my family, my entire family, everybody in my family consumed cannabis my whole life. Right. So this wasn't like, I was never exposed to it. I was just the guy who had that vision and path that I believed after 9/11. Remember 9/11
Right.
happened and my whole world changed. And I followed this path of service and whatnot. And I don't say I really had a choice, but the perspective that I was given and in order to have that service and to be able to comply with that service, it just didn't. I was lied to, and I find now that as I get older, that it's I don't know, offensive. It's hurtful because a lot of people went through a lot of shit that they didn't have to include myself. The amount of pharmaceuticals that have been pumped through my body have and will decrease my life expectancy. You know what I mean? That's less time I'm going to have with my grandchildren, less time I'm going to have with my family because I didn't know any better. When the doctor tells you take these pills, you'll feel better, that is what you do. And when they say, hey, this cannabis or marijuana leads to people becoming crazy and doing crimes and all this bullshit that is still being fed to our world. I mean, the extremism that we have now in the beliefs that people foster and the just different aspects, the religious aspects. I grew up Roman Catholic, right? And I had abandoned, after I got home from the war, I had abandoned any type of religion. But just growing up in a Roman Catholic household, I mean, if Jesus says that you're not supposed to do this and I'm not going to go to heaven because of it, what am I supposed to do? We want to go to heaven, right? And so I think a lot of just the misnomers, but here's what I can do now. I know what the truth is, and I can only present that to my children, and hopefully my children will grow up with not having to go through a lot of the experiences I had to. And I'm proud of my service, and I still have friends that believe cannabis is the boogeyman, and I don't hold them at fault for that. But everything that I've done, my government service, when being a part of that, I tell folks, I got popped as a federal employee with cannabis. I was a medical patient when I was a federal employee because I had gotten to the point to where I was so poisoned with fentanyl and oxy and every other damn poison they were pumping through me that I just I thought that cannabis was, I got to try it. I have to see what it was, and it did. It increased my my quality of life, and I don't apologize for my previous views because I thought I had the best interests of my community, and but I was wrong, and I freely admit that. And now I think I've dedicated and I am passionate about changing those views, and that's about all I can do.
I think when we look at right now, why people don't believe in government so much, why people don't believe in elections so much, why people have so much skepticism surrounding the system and in anything beneficial coming from the mouths of government, the drug war has a lot to do with it. If you heard the lie, if you believe the lie, and then you, like Tommy Chung likes to do, and then all of a sudden you realized it was a lie, it's difficult then to get past the betrayal. And when we talk about disenfranchising our youth right now, telling our youth that they're equal in America, where if you're a colored person, if you're a person of color, a biopic, then you're more likely to get slammed up and killed. Look at here in Michigan, especially. So, the government's lies have caught up with them, and now no one believes in the system, and they're scratching their heads trying to figure out what happened. We know.
I was an inside guy, and I really know the bullshit that goes on inside the government, and it's a travesty. And all I can do is spread the word. And I think I'm kind of living proof that it helps. I mean, and the thousands of veterans that I have spoken to, It's so prevalent in the veteran community. And I think we're at the point now to where it's saving lives. People who, Marines and military guys, straight-laced folks that would never have considered using this substance, have now, their eyes are opened, and alls we can do is move forward, right? Looking in the past, I think, isn't going to do anything. I mean, if I could tap into some of the knowledge that Adam has, I wish years ago, I wish I would have been involved with it. I would have saved myself a lot of bullshit and a lot of misery. But that's the beauty of legalization. Legalization allowed a guy like me to consider it. I would have never considered it any other way. So I guess that's a positive, that is now that it's medical and a doctor said you should try this, and I did try it and it helped me out. I think that's something that legalization has brought to light, and I'm appreciative of that, because I would probably still be on all kinds of crazy, nasty shit that would have just decreased my life expectancy.
The interesting thing about it, I find funny, is that you can go to your primary care physician and you can ask him to recommend that you use cannabis. That's what you're doing. You're asking. This would normally be called drug-seeking behavior. However, you're asking him to recommend cannabis. What you cannot do is go to your primary care physician and ask for Norcos, because that would be considered drug-seeking behavior, and they wouldn't give it to you. And they would mark your file as a drug-seeking patient, because that is a concern nowadays.
Yeah.
So we're certainly treated differently. I like to remind people that your doctor did not suggest marijuana to you. You suggested marijuana to your doctor, and he agreed with you. That's what happens with a medical card in Michigan. And it's only important to note that, because if we were talking about an actual prescription, we would be talking about a totally different,
The federally controlled instrument.
right. It would be a totally different ballgame. And I'm not convinced that may not happen one day. I could see having what would eventually be called pharmaceutical grade. Not that the quality is any better, but it would be something that you could purchase in a pharmacy.
It's a real thing.
It
It's
is.
in the controlled substances list on
Right.
Schedule 2.
Right. And I can see that happening, and I'm not necessarily for or against it. I'd probably cop some like I did Marinol and check it out, and probably go back to my street level guy, but
So let me bring round circle a conversation that we had earlier on this show, where we talked to Amie and Trish, and they discussed the declining numbers of registered medical marijuana patients here in the state of Michigan. Now, we also talked about a number of people that we all know personally that have beaten opioids or gotten off alcohol or anything else. And in almost every one of those instances where people used cannabis as an exit drug from other harmful substances, they did it before they had their medical card in most instances. So what the true challenge in my mind is trying to convince the non-smoking population that cannabis, whether you have a medical card or whether you don't have a medical card, helps in so many different ways that it does. We don't have to have specific THCA, THCV, THCG, even though those are all wonderful substances which all have their own particular place in our society. We just need to have full plant available to us, full spectrum, baby, and let us medicate ourselves. We know what our body needs.
And that's the nice thing about the game, is that if it's put out there, people will use it. They're happy to take the suggestion. They're happy to learn about it. They want to know. Dennis Perone said that all cannabis use is medicinal, and a lot of people don't realize how medicinal their use is until it's pointed out to them. But I think, again, I point it out all the time, we're at the infancy of all of this, and the people that are still have a lot to learn, they're going to learn. It's going to happen as information becomes more prevalent. And right now you're beholden basically on the dispensaries you go to learn about the cannabis that they're selling. I can see in the future that there be much easier access to what things are and where it's available, similar to some of these programs that'll tell you where you can go buy weed now. But I can see, the future in this industry is just huge.
We are a country of broken, traumatized. Our healthcare system is in the toilet. We're at a day where you can go to the emergency room for whatever ailment, and they want to charge you $15,000-$20,000, and people don't have the resources to have medical insurance, and we don't have the mental health infrastructure. It just doesn't even exist. It's so broken that there's nothing else that can be offered, and yet we have a therapy that, and I always say, it's not just the cannabis, it's the community. It's the people who are out there educating how to use this and how to not have to go to the emergency room, how to not have to do these other things that you may, it's saving lives in that aspect. The trauma that we are experiencing as a country isn't going away anytime soon, I fear. And we're not in a good place, and cannabis kind of helps ease that the bullshit.
It does. And again, for those people who may not be familiar with it, when you're utilizing medical marijuana in the state of Michigan, you're not really under a doctor's supervision. A doctor makes the recommendation that Mr. Ashbash described earlier today, not a prescription, but a recommendation. And then basically you're off. Now, the doctor cannot help you find a source. The doctor cannot help you figure out which strain works for you. The doctor, in almost all circumstances, can't really even talk to you about dosing, although there is dosing information available from some very well-known medical facilities that is available for physicians if they do want to have some dosing guidelines. But the fact is, we're doing it all on our own once we get that med card, and it's working. It's working great. One thing we don't need to do is change a patient caregiver system that's been successfully operating for the last 12 years. We certainly don't need to change it because a couple of wealthy individuals have decided that a few bad actors amongst caregivers are the face of the entire industry, and that they want to punish all those people who are just helping their patients out by eliminating some of the bedrock upon which the caregiver program was created. And then, of course, with the municipal issue too. I'm going to be speaking to the Benzie Dems. I'm all fired up on the subject because I spent about an hour talking to the guy from the Benzie Democrats that's going to have me speak about municipal issues in 2 weeks at their event. But the fact is, caregivers are under two assaults, one legislative and one from an ordinance-based perspective. We have agents of the government, the Township Association and Michigan Municipal League, really pushing hard in order to get ordinances passed in local communities, which take us backwards. And taking us backwards doesn't help anybody at this particular point. It certainly doesn't help those 262 children that Amie and Trish talked about that are registered under the medical marijuana program here in the state of Michigan.
We don't think it helps people who are trying to do it. They ignorantly believe that doing this, somehow entices more business their way, or gives them more market share, or whatever the thought is.
A patient sometimes takes a long time to divulge their secrets to their caregiver to talk about their particular issue. Anton, I know from a veteran's perspective, I'm sure it's even more difficult for some of those people to explain what they're going through to someone. When you finally get a caregiver that actually listens and understands and has grown cannabis that's successful for you, for some bullshit motherfucker in a suit in Lansing to try and take that away from you, to take away the legal protection that exists between those two individuals.
It's unconscionable, and it's unconscionable, but I want to remain positive in this aspect, that I believe I try to be a forward thinker, and greed always has people who are greedy and who are looking to do the things that are happening always make a mistake. And I want to hopefully be positive in thinking that all these silly ordinances that are coming out are bullshit and are unconstitutional in several different ways. And I'm hoping sooner than later that some of this nonsense is challenged and that we will come out on top, because there are so many equal protection issues and all kinds of different issues because of the ignorance that a lot of these municipalities have, that the discrepancies between the MMA and the MRTMA, that they're throwing these ordinances out there where there's direct conflict. So I'm hoping, I'm praying that that some of this nonsense will get snuffed out here soon through the legal system.
So we just had Jen flash or Jamie flashed a note from Jen asking about participating in that municipality discussion. To be honest with you, it's a little 10-minute segment that I'm going to be speaking at on Saturday the 21st via Zoom through the Benzie County Democrats. I'm certain if you go on the Benzie County Democrat website that there's a link that you can tune in for that. But they have like a 3-hour freaking meeting, and they're giving me 10 minutes to talk about
That's
it. So
Rev Steve country.
Exactly correct. He's the one that hooked me up with these guys. So I'll be more than happy to have you pay attention to that, but it's not a big old deal. It's just a little 10-minute speech. And then
Jen's
maybe some
probably
questions afterwards.
Also pointing out like Arbella Township and some other places that she's been staying on top of a lot of those where there's trouble brewing and making people know about them. So
Jen's been great about that. And when you're limited in 10 minutes, you can't really get into some of the details about some of this. What you can do is you can give the Dems in that area information so that they can keep an eye out on their local communities when they see someone starting to talk about some of these ordinances, similar to what's been happening in Southeast Michigan and Central Michigan and in Western Michigan, and how to properly respond once they do see that. So that's basically going to be, that's more than 10 minutes worth of conversation right there, easily. So, but we get this opportunity to educate every once in a while. All of us do. And it's important to take it when people reach out. There's an MLive session coming up where they have a lot of folks speaking tomorrow night in Brighton. Jerry Millen and Calvin Johnson will be there at the city council meeting talking to Brighton about opening up their ordinance and allowing cannabis businesses in the community. I mean, there's opportunities for people to participate. They are all around you. If you want to, you have the chance to make a difference. Do you want to? Is the question.
What do you think, Adam? Where do you see it going? What are your thoughts, having seen it progress? What do you have any forward-thinking thoughts on this?
Well, I believe it's so new that none of what you see today will be tomorrow. That, okay, all these communities that are opting out, fuck you. Enjoy your opt-out money. Oh, wait, you don't get any. Wait till you figure out how much money you lost over the years because your neighboring communities went for it. And I think that there will come a time when these municipal league has their little meeting and all these people will show up and there'll be like this little gaggle of people who are all wearing nice suits and driving nice cars. And they're going to be from the communities that got the millions and millions and millions of weed dollars over the last couple of years. And then there'll be all the rest of these idiots. And, a discussion will take place. And it'll be like, hey, you guys got all this extra money, man. We're not getting that. Well, yeah, because you opted out. See, you got to go back and convince your people that they want to opt in. And it's coming. It's going to happen. Just like there were communities that said no drive-through. So McDonald's and Burger King went to the borderline of the next community, and that's where they set up. Those communities all changed their mind, So it's all going to change. The problem is, and here's where Amy Carter is important. And I don't care what anybody thinks about it. Here's why she's important. She's pro-cannabis. Therefore, if she has a chance to get elected, she's got to be the person we help to get elected because we need to get people elected who know and understand what we're talking about. Not who think they do because they've been involved in the war on drugs for the last 30, 40 years. But we need people who understand what it means when prices drop or, understand what it means to issue a license that's impossible to use and nobody's applying for it. I mean, you got to understand you made a mistake, and they figured out they made a mistake, but they're still not coming from an educated point of view. They're none of them. Remember, none of the state employees are cannabis users. None of them.
That's very true. None of the people making those decisions.
Who wants to deal with those people? I mean, I don't like people like that. I find them rude and offensive. But whatever. I mean, and that's my point. We got a long way to go. And it's going to happen. The rules will change. The laws will change. And I can see at one point where it's no different than any other substance anywhere.
Yeah. But remember, right now our society is taking a hard look at revisiting some traditionally conservative viewpoints right now. There's a push right now to get back to what sometimes people refer to as basic values, and that includes the hate on cannabis. So at this particular time, even though we may not be seeing it manifest here in Michigan, in other states there is still the hate on cannabis. A governor vetoed an entire legislature's cannabis program in one of the southern states because he didn't want to have a cannabis program in his state. There's consistently people who resist moving from a medical program to an adult use program because they figure that cannabis should exclusively be there for medicine, and for every other use is still criminal. So
don't forget, some of those states are calling their system a medical system, and it's not a system at all, and it's anything but medical. I mean,
there's no organized distribution. There's no way that if you don't have the ability to grow your own medicine, then it's really not a medical program.
Right. And some places only allowed oils, and some places only allowed this and that.
That's true.
That just shows that they don't know what they're talking about. And hey, I appreciate you moving the ball forward, but all because the ball fell off the tee, that doesn't mean the ball really moved forward.
Well, what it means, Adam, though, is that those people did something out of political advantage,
right,
not out of a sense of knowledge, not out of a sense of scientific understanding or compassion for the subject.
But we look at them, but my point is also this, but we look at them as a state that has a program. And all these programs are not good programs. And some of them are actually bad programs.
Very true.
Because it has allowed other shenanigans to go on in the background while they're maybe rewriting their program. I mean,
Illinois seems to be rife with rumors of advantage and political, dick swinging, all these different things that we see. True Leave in Florida has 158 dispensary licenses. It's a limited state. They completely dominate the market. The question becomes, are you not trying to provide for small business opportunities, or are you just going to succumb to the fact that this is what people are going to be able to do? Oklahoma with the exact opposite, which is so easy to get in the market, anybody can, and then end up being quite a disastrous scenario as well. So we are just finding our way. 50 different individual crucibles of democracy here, each one trying their own way, including some that are still holding on to complete prohibition. And I think it's easier to see when you compare all 50 one to another. It's easy to see the really bad programs.
Right.
Maybe it's easier to see the good ones too. I'd like to think we're at the top, or one of the top anyway. People love to come to Michigan.
There's a lot of good things to say. We've come a long way. We make that disclaimer all the time. We shouldn't lose sight of it. Celebrate it in some ways. Take advantage of it. But we shouldn't be going the other way.
Adam talked about it earlier today. Some people are unhappy when we take small steps forward, but small steps are how you actually travel distance. Sometimes
increments are what's there.
Yep.
You're trying to change generations of perspective, and a lot of these folks, I think, Adam, you said it a few times, until the elderly generation dies off, they die off. There's no more, and until that happens.
We're like 1.5 generations of die-off away. And, I'm ready for it.
Well, the fact that the war on drugs is the biggest public relations, scam that's ever been perpetrated on the
failed public policy is
covered the entire face of the earth. Our treaties forced other countries to comply with our backwards way of thinking, and now we have an entire world that's predicated on canna hate, and we're trying to slowly bring them out of it. And we just are in the middle of that slowly bringing them out of it period, where we wish it was our ideal circumstance, but we're still tugging on that rope.
And as we've said before, this is a multifaceted subject, and some areas of it are kind of complex, and to get the important points across, sometimes it's within the context of that own state's laws, So it's a weird one. 5512 is helping to expose a lot of that kind of stuff. It's hard to get through. I mean, it's understandable how the perspective of a judge would be, hey, we need to have control of this court, be able to have totally control over everybody who's in it, and that kind of stuff. The idea that they would just let it go if somebody had their card, they can't even conceive of. We're up against that kind of stuff.
If those vestiges of the old ways just slowly being lost. That old flag is tattered at the edges, and we're slowly replacing it with new cloth. But the reality of it is that it is a timely process. It's a process that takes time.
The problem is those people are willing to fly a tattered flag.
They are they not?
And if that doesn't bother you, then listen. When I asked Anton if he was bothered that the government lied to him, they didn't just lie to people. They had evidence to the contrary. And they poo-pooed that evidence for someone's political gain or goal.
Patents on cannabinoids, yes.
I mean,
come on.
Let's not talk about the Schaefer report and Nixon deciding that it was easier to go after the colored people and dark-skinned people if he used the war on drugs.
So for clarity, for what Adam just said, it determined upon researching, cannabis, that it was akin to like aspirin or something like that.
Right.
You were really trying to rate it against
a report ordered to be done by Richard Nixon himself.
So cannabis was placed on the controlled substances list in such a harsh position for political reasons, not for any scientific.
According to the guy that started MiNORML. I'm sorry.
Straub?
Keith Straub. According to him, everything was put on Schedule 1, and it was moved off of Schedule 1 into its appropriate schedule. And cannabis ended up getting left there because of what happened with the Schaefer report and stuff like that. That's the way it never belonged there and should have been moved.
There's no place to put it, so better just keep it at the harshest possible position.
Right.
Well, if you can't justify its status 2 because it doesn't qualify, or status 3 because it doesn't qualify, or 4,
Nixon
or 5,
wanted
or
it
6
there, so that's another reason why I left it there, probably.
Right.
That's just when we talked earlier today about how people, especially this young generation, have lost confidence in government. This is one of the things we look at and we say, wow, government really lied and then acted illogically, acted unscientifically, and then tried to cover their tracks by brainwashing us all these decades. And it's indisputable.
All I know is that, if you pay attention to what's happening in the news, shit repeats itself. And I get real excited when I hear something I've heard before. And I heard last week that there was a leak from the Supreme Court, and I got all excited. Because I know the last time I heard about a leak from the Supreme Court, my buddies were responsible for bringing Nixon down. So, that's how government works. These things are cyclical. They're all one, everybody's one sentence away from losing their job and blowing up their career and society changing overnight.
And Adam references a John Sinclair story, too, about that, which we've covered here before.
You can hear Mr. Sinclair speak himself on our YouTube channel. There's a video like this.
This is just classic government. And the one thing is that marijuana keeps fighting through all of that. Think about it. We didn't just think of this yesterday. This came from a time when it was really rough, and now it's pretty easy. So we're doing all right.
Yep.
Mark makes a good point.
Mark's point is ask a Native American about the government. Certainly, if you need to have any justification as to why people don't trust government, look at the Native American reservation system. It's atrocious. These are citizens to whom we made promises that we have completely failed, and now we've just pretend they don't exist.
But Americans are good at that. Americans like that type of thing. No offense, but Anton knew that the government wasn't going to deliver on the promises they made him when he signed his name on that line. He knew that. They all know that. They're not stupid, but they're hopeful. And the reality is that you come home and the government doesn't deliver on what they said they would, or they make it difficult for you to get the things you need. And that's because that's what government does.
Hey, with that, we're out of time. I think went really well. Good discussion today. Again, particularly having Trish and Amie on discuss their candidacy to give a little context to their statement. And of course,
Marlena from Great Lakes.
Yeah, it's going to be taking on that role. Do a good job, and she'll be back on and give us an update from time to time. And if anybody else has anything else, we can let Rick formally end it. Adam, we want to include anything?
Oh, we're good.
Anton?
I'm good, brother.
Look, if you look at today's show, we talked a lot about opportunities for people to participate. And really, we talked about optimism. We talked about some criticisms, but we talked about a lot of hope. And if you have hope in your heart, then let it be the fuel that powers your legs into action. Get your ass in gear. Get to some place where you can do good. You will be surrounded by other people who will respect you for it, who will welcome you, and you will find community. Oftentimes people, especially nowadays coming out of a pandemic, we have lost our sense of community. Activism is a way to rekindle that. And I hope people take that to heart and maybe volunteer a little bit more than they did before. And that's my message.
Excellent. Jazz Cabbage Cafe next week. Thanks a lot, Rick. See you guys.
Peace.